we're always looking for this like absolutely perfect thing. So I knew somebody that wanted to set up a food forest, and this was over a decade ago. And when I started planting my food forest, she said, "I heard you're really into food forests, and you've done a lot of like looking into it and stuff, and you're planting one. And somebody said I needed to meet you." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And she's like, "So how do you plant it?" I said, "Well, I just kind of walk around the yard, and I'd like to put a tree here. I'll put a tree here, and then I'll walk like the right amount of distance for the next tree, and I'll just drop another pot on the ground." I said, "I just kind of like start sticking pots, and then I start sticking seeds in the ground, and I just kind of see what grows and what doesn't." And she's like, "I feel like I should have a plan, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I understand. I mean, so plan out where you want your tall stuff to be and your short stuff to be." I said, maybe just plan the tall stuff first and plant the shorter things around them, right? So you've got your tent posts for the system. You're gonna put smaller things around those and smaller things around those. I said, so like pick one island, and you're gonna put a pecan tree there, and then walk out like 20 feet and plant a pear tree and an apple tree and a peach tree, and then around those start planting some stuff. I said, maybe you just mulch the whole area so you got like an island in your grass. And she's like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna use the grass for like in the future. We might have like a kids ministry or something, and like kids could come over and play, and like they could learn about agriculture. And I'm like, okay, so pick an area that you pretty much think you're not going to use. Yeah, we're just trying to decide like if we're going to do the chicken thing, because if the chickens went over there, and so I've got the potted trees, and I'm like, just plant something.
Yeah.
Just plant something, make a commitment to something. Right? So if you read Square Foot Gardening, and you're like looking at Square Foot Gardening, and like, oh, it's so small. It's like a 4 foot by 4 foot, and it's got to and you've got to do the raised bed, and you've got to like buy stuff, and you've got to mix vermiculite, and then you got to like be on a rotation. And you look at that, and you're like, that seems like a lot of work to me. Okay, well, don't do it. But somebody else might look at the system and go, oh, finally, somebody told me everything I need to do. So you put in a Square Foot Garden. And don't worry that I've got a row garden that's, a quarter acre. You see this guy on YouTube, he's got a row garden that's a quarter acre. Jeff Lawton's planted 50 acres of food forest or whatever. Don't worry about that. If you're concerned about it, make your little Square Foot Garden. If it makes sense to you, make it. The primary hurdle is actually growing something. If you haven't grown food before, grow something. But if you want me to tell you how to do it, I'll tell you what to do. First thing you start doing is making your own compost. So just make a pile somewhere, throw all your kitchen wastes into it. If you have animals, like if you have any farm animals, throw them in there. I don't mean to throw the animal in there, throw the manure in there. Compost your farm animals. Yeah. So you throw all that stuff together and you make your compost pile, right? So first thing you're going to do is start saving all that stuff.
Build that fertility, yeah.
Yeah, build that fertility. Fall leaves, you get a bunch of fall leaves, throw them in there, whatever. That stuff's going to start rotting down. Then you put that aside and just forget it. Don't worry about like trying to get the perfect composting system. Just make a bin somewhere and throw junk in it. Look, I mean, nature composts inside of your gutters. I mean, there's no carbon-nitrogen ratio being perfect or whatever. You scrape in those gutters, you go, my gosh, there's a bunch of slop in here. But I mean, nature does that. So just make some spots somewhere and throw up a little compost pile. Pick an area of your yard that's got a good full sun spot where the weeds look like they're thick and the grass looks like it's thick. If you've got areas where it's really patchy and ugly, you're going to have to do a little bit of work on it to make the soil good. But the weeds will tell you if plants will grow. If the weeds are nice and green in a spot right over there, yeah, go till it up. Put the garden close to your house if you can. Don't necessarily do a huge garden unless you really are going to be pouring yourself into it, because sometimes it's not encouraging to have a huge space you can't take care of. If you're like going to grow carrots for the first time, don't plant 1,000 foot of carrots. I mean, the labor involved with it will drive you nuts, and you'll be frustrated. So put a little area back there, and then make a list. What do I like to eat? You like to eat beans? Well, if you don't like to eat beans, well, don't plant a lot of beans. I mean, potatoes are good. I like potatoes. Put potatoes in there. Put in some radishes, put in some whatever, and just get stuff growing, right? Because you have to go kind of through practice mode before you get to real survival garden mode, or else you're that guy who has never gardened before, but you have this canister of like freeze-dried canister of seeds or whatever that is like plant a 2-acre survival garden, doomsday seed vault, but you don't know how to grow a bean or a radish, you're going to have a lot of failures. And so what you want to do is fail on some stuff and succeed on some stuff, so you kind of understand what's cooking. And I think raised beds are great if you don't go. I don't want you to go spend money on wood. I just want you to turn an area over and then mound up some beds. In most areas, mounded beds work pretty well. You just mound it up. You don't bother putting boundaries on it. You're not going to even spend any money on this garden, right? Hardly anything. You're going to spend a few bucks on seeds. You're going to need a fork and a shovel, and you're just going to go dig an area up, say goodbye to a chunk of grass, lose your emotional attachment to that little piece of grass, and break ground and start tilling and start digging and use your body to make some nice little mounds, maybe 4 foot wide. I like 4 foot wide beds. It's about right. I tried 5 foot. I tried a little smaller. 4 foot seems to be pretty consistent for most small vegetables. And leave a couple of feet in between the beds. This is all bare ground. A couple of nice mounds, right? And then just plant it and see what happens. And read the back of the seed packets. Check your local extension office for when they say to plant what vegetable in your area. Just follow all the boring stuff and get some stuff growing. And feed it with what you have. If you have compost already, that's great. If you don't, you could feed it with a bag of fertilizer from your shed. It's not ideal. It's going to burn the ground out over time. But what you're doing is you're just learning these skills. It's like before you go into a baseball game, you're going to learn how to hold the bat. You're going to learn how to swing when things get thrown at you. You're just going to learn the basics of, I'm digging and I'm watering and the plants are doing this, but then this one died, and why did it die? And why does it look yellow? Well, it's probably not enough nitrogen. You're going to have to problem solve your way through a few of those things. Now, if you're a little more serious and you're actually freaking out right now, I don't have any time for a learning curve. Then the number one thing I would plant in most temperate climates would be potatoes. Plant potatoes. Dig trenches. Cut potatoes up into a few pieces with eyes on each one, lay them down that row, and don't plant too close. Everybody wants to tell you like you get maximum yield from planting close. Well, that's great if you have really fertile soil and you're going to irrigate it. Most people are not that great on taking care of stuff. The reason that those rows were so wide in the past was because they were mostly relying on rainfall. It's not because they needed to drive tractors through, though it helps. It was because there's smaller amount of resources in the soil, but it's divided between less plants. You have to have very high fertility for a very high population density. The city is very complicated. A city requires a huge amount of stuff to be trucked and fed into it all the time. The country does not. People have a few acres each. They got a cow in the back. They got, 10 acres of this and 10 acres of that, and it's no big deal. Things get bad, they've got like tons of space to play with, and you can make food and whatever. But the tighter the garden space, the more plants fighting for resources inside of it, the better you actually have to be at maintaining and walking around and making sure that everything doesn't get wiped out. Like if you don't water your really tightly planted raised bed for a week, you're going to probably lose the harvest on it. Whereas if I ignore my gardens that are spaced at 3 feet wide, if it doesn't rain for 2 weeks, the plants start to slow down, but there's still enough soil moisture and fertility in the ground that I still get a harvest. And what you want is a harvest. You don't want a full-time job necessarily. You got other stuff you got to do. You got to go fight zombies, and like you've got to run back and forth over the border and fight cartels, and whoever's the warlord of Georgia has just invaded. So you've got to be dealing with that, right? So the wide spacing and stuff gives you time to deal with all the other stuff in your life that you've got to deal with, and it's simple. So plant your calories. Plant potatoes in wide rows at the right time of the year, and then you have calories in the ground. Potatoes taste good, and they fill you up better. If you do wide rows and you just planted, something like radishes, well, radishes are good, but they're not particularly filling. I can eat a lot of radishes. I will feel ill eating a lot of radishes before I actually feel full. So you gotta pay attention to that sort of thing. What will actually fill you up? You know. So if you're in the South, you can also add sweet potatoes to that mix. And sweet potatoes are excellent, but when you get past about zone 6, zone 5, sweet potatoes start to become harder to manage, and potatoes are way, way better. And then after you get your potatoes in, put in some, put in some cabbages, put in some kale, put in some stuff for vitamin C and nutrition, like we were talking about. But like 80% of your garden should really be stuff that will fill you up if you're worried about a survival type situation. But keep it as simple as possible. Don't get caught up in the ideas of this like amazing future garden, and it's got pumps and bubblers and fish and piping and insulation, and it's got a solar panel and all that stuff. What happens when the supply line breaks? What happens when your ball valve goes out? Well, I'm just gonna have like 5 of those in the shed. Yeah, that's cool, but really, it's not particularly redundant. You don't have a lot of redundancy in it, and it's not tried and true of thousands of years of human history. So I don't necessarily trust it. I don't trust it like I don't necessarily trust that crypto is going to be around like gold is going to be around. It's like, okay, it's cool. I mean, it's cool that you did that, and it may be working right now, but it doesn't have the history.
Yeah. It's fundamentally it's fragile, and any time you're relying on your stash of pumps for your aquaponic system in your shed, you've still got some definite runway that is exhausted at some point. And so now we're looking at
that's right.
We're looking at going the other way. We're looking at things that are going to build and pay off in the long run, and maybe that is a perennial polyculture that you're going to invest some effort into now that's going to grow more down the line, even as you still have some raised beds that are going to be pumping out the potatoes, so you're feeling good and you're comfortable this season.
Right.
One of the really key things you said there that I just want to highlight and amplify was, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Like if you're just waiting and for something that's not quite right yet, I'm not going to build that because I was hoping that maybe I could have chickens down the line and it wouldn't. No, get something and get your hands dirty right now and start. And if you have to rip it up later because you found something else that's going to work better, that's all right. But at least you've got something that's working right now. And then
right.
Also you said, read the back of the seeds and just try it out. If you really are feeling a little anxious about what's going on right now, even better would be to connect with people that are already in your area, because they're not going to have sort of the generic advice from the seed packet. They know, and they're really excited about it because they do it, right? They have been growing these seeds, they're saving their seeds, they know the conditions it grew under, and if it liked sun in the afternoons or whatever, they can tell you when it wants to be started, if it can maybe take a light frost early in the season, or they can give you the whole story of those genetics. And so that's, plus these are the people you want to be aligning with anyway. So
that's right.
If at all possible, find seed swaps and these kinds of things. Yeah, go ahead. Survival garden scenario we're talking about right now, I would again say, look at your neighbors who already have gardens, see what's working for them and copy it. If that's, get started somehow. And then as you just, you bring a playful kind of attitude towards it. The more you work with plants, you can't help it. And plus it's just fun. And so things evolve, and you'll observe something is working or not working where you are, and maybe it's the rocks and the soil, who knows? And things will evolve. I like that way of saying it's a living system, and it's going to grow with you.
Right, and you're gonna find things that you don't like. Like, don't do stuff that you don't like, as much as possible. I mean, if you have to do things you don't like, right? You may not like digging. It's good for you, so you make yourself do it. Like it's good to go to the gym and make yourself do it. But if you find yourself irritated and not getting joy out of growing the plants, I almost feel like the plants know it.
Oh yeah.
They almost seem to respond. There's always that one person, and they say, oh, she could stick a broomstick in the ground and it would sprout. And it's like, yeah, I've met people like that, but you should be seeking joy in it too. Look, if you really like to grow hot peppers, but you also want a survival garden, you don't have to give up growing hot peppers. Somebody has to make pepper sprays for the riots. Find a niche.
There's anti-inflammatory benefits to them as well. That's how I justify it. But
yeah, it's anti-inflammatory. That's it. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Not just weapons grade. We have thrown out a tremendous amount of knowledge, and I really appreciate your time. Is there any parting thoughts that you would want to throw in as we conclude here?
Yeah. I would say don't be overcome by fear. And don't be overcome by analysis paralysis. Don't be afraid to fail. What you want to do is you want to fail fast. You want to try a bunch of stuff and figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then keep pushing through and keep going. Our life is but a vapor. We have a short period of time here before we go to the other side, and we just need to do the very best that we can with the resources that we have. Love your family, build good communities around you. Don't lie to yourself and say that you're gonna, I'm doing a great job when you know you're not doing a great job. Just go the extra mile and push through the thing you need to do. If you're not in shape, get yourself in shape. If you eat garbage food when it hits 10 o'clock at night and you always find yourself going and getting ice cream, stop doing that. Get it out of your house. Get your life together and pull yourself up. And so you're in good shape to go to your garden. You're in good shape to take care of your family and take care of yourself. And whatever that thing is that you really, really wish that you had done in 2022, you wish that you had gardened like this or tried this or started doing this or written a book or whatever. Don't let all the fear of the pandemic and all this stuff eat your life. Get it done. Just go do it and don't get chewed up. I mean, I believe that there's a plan. People always talk about there's all these evil conspiracies and everything. We absolutely know that that's true. But I believe that I'm on the winning side. Ultimately, I believe that God has a plan that's beyond all of this stuff, and that the certain amount of pain that we go through is actually sometimes a nudge to, hey, why don't you go find the guy that made this system and ask him what's going on? Hey, up here, So don't let yourself get completely snowplowed, because you could watch videos on the end of the world forever and ever, and it does not help you. Go out, pick up a shovel, and start digging and start planting, and pay attention to what Christian is saying and what other people are saying. Like, you need to go out and do it, but don't just absorb information and don't try it. Don't be afraid to fail. Go out and fail really awesomely, and then fail again, and then fail again until you get that thing and you're like, this system finally works, because that's the way you get it. You keep trying keys until you find the one that fits the lock that's your soil. And definitely, like Christian said, go talk to the old folks down the road. Go talk to anybody that's local and say, hey, how do you do this? And be friendly. If you've got a package of seeds and you can't plant all of those seeds, go to your neighbor and say, dude, I'm trying these pumpkins. You want to try some too? And give him some too. And you'll find that these connections start to come together. And you'll find that the more that you serve other people and the more you just go out and do physical work and push through all of the confusion and everything else, the better you feel, and the more the fear will just start to recede, and you'll realize, hey, we're not in control of everything, but I'm in control of how I can behave right now and what I can do. And I think I got it. I think we're good. So.
Fantastic. That's great advice. David the Good, thank you so much for your time. Is davidthegood.com the best place for people to find you and support your work?
No, thesurvivalgardener.com. The Survival Gardener is my main website, thesurvivalgardener.com. You can find me on YouTube as well as David the Good. I have a moderately entertaining channel. It's not, YouTube is inherently a rhetorical medium. So sometimes you'll find that you read my book and you're like, oh, there's a lot of scientific information in there. And then on YouTube, I'm doing something absolutely ridiculous. Just roll with it. It's YouTube. I really enjoy having fun on the YouTube channel, but you will see you'll see beneath the surface and see I have a lot of complicated and interesting agricultural stuff going on, but we joke around a lot too. So we keep it entertaining, and you're welcome to join me. And it is a family-friendly channel, so if your kids are interested in agriculture, they can totally watch my channel, and it's only occasionally terrifying.
No, it's a great channel. People should definitely go subscribe if you've not already seen David the Good. And there's also some guitar in there for the music aficionados. So David, thanks once again, and take care.
Yeah, thank you, man. Glad to be here.